Deep in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, something ancient lingers. Whispers in the fog, footsteps on empty trails, and shadows that don't belong. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
So I used to be a worship leader at a church, and I used to be married to a worship leader at a church. It was our first year of marriage, and we had just moved into a very small apartment, and it was in kind of a rough part of town. And well, one evening, me and my husband were just kind of hanging out on the little patio area outside our front door. It was dark. It was probably about 9 o'clock in the evening. And as we're sitting there just kind of talking, I look over my shoulder because something catches my eye. And I see a man standing probably 15 feet from us, dressed in solid black. He had like a hoodie on, like had a hood over his face, and I couldn't make out any facial features, but he was just standing there, just looking at us. And I look at my husband and I go, "Babe, let's go. That guy's creeping me out." And my husband kind of looks over there and he goes, "Okay." And he kind of ushers me back inside. We go inside, shut the door, lock the door. And I was like, what was that guy doing? That was just super creepy. He was just standing there staring at us. And my husband looks at me and he said, "Look, I didn't want to say this while we were outside because I didn't want to scare you, but there was nobody there." I said, "Nobody there?" He was right there, like 15 feet away. He was just standing on the sidewalk staring at us. How could you have not seen him? And he said, "I swear to God, babe, I looked right where you were looking. There was nobody on the sidewalk." This story gets creepier. Not long after this, my husband wakes me up in the middle of the night. We're laying in bed together and he's like, babe, wake up." And so I kind of stir awake and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Are you the one sitting here tapping on the headboard?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I've been laying here awake for like 30 minutes and I thought maybe you were just laying there like trying to prank me and scare me." I'm like, "Knocking on the headboard?" He's like, "Yeah, it's just been going like just right behind my head. And I thought maybe it was your hand and you were trying to do it to scare me." And I said, "No, I'm not knocking on the headboard." And he's like, "Okay, super weird." We go to sleep. He wakes up, I don't know how long it was, but he wakes up. So my husband wakes me up and he's clearly rattled. He had had a horrible nightmare and he was like, "Babe, wake up. I just had a horrible, like just demonic, creepy dream." And so of course I sit straight up and I'm like, what was your dream? Now, this was a Saturday night. And again, he was a worship leader. I was a worship leader. We were serving in a church. And so we were, it was Saturday night and we were getting ready to go to church just the next morning. And he said, we were in church, we were on stage, we were singing and leading worship, and he said, "I looked out past the congregation to the main doorway that leads into the sanctuary, and he said, I saw this horrible demon just standing in the doorway." He said that in the dream, the demon looked right at him and said, "I'm going to be here all day." And he continued to tell me, like, in this dream, that demon, said that to him, and then, like, he looked around the church building, and there were just dead bugs all over the floor, like just piled up. And as he's telling me this, you can feel the energy in the apartment, like just, it's heavy, it's dark, it's oppressive, and it genuinely scared us. So we got up, we started kind of praying throughout the house and just asking Jesus to remove what was in our house screwing with us. But here's where it gets crazy creepy. We finally get peace in our apartment. We feel that energy leave and we manage to go back to bed. But the next morning we wake up, we get ready, we go to church, pretty on edge, to be honest with you. Like, we both had a very genuine sense that that demon was real, that it had basically tried to taunt us in our dream and tell us that it was going to be in that church building waiting on us when we got there. So we walk in the church building, and literally as we're walking in, we hear staff members, like down the hallway, we hear them talking and they're going, "What is with all the dead bugs? They are freaking everywhere." And me and my husband look at each other. Y'all, the floor of that church was covered in dead bugs. You couldn't take a step without walking on one. That was all the confirmation we needed that that dream was absolutely real, and that demon might as well have showed up himself and said, "Told you."
I grew up in rural West Virginia, and my grandparents owned my grandfather's old family farm. It was roughly about 120 acres of land inside of a valley. Only thing on this property was my great-great-grandparents' house. My grandpa would always tell me and my cousin all about all the Appalachian legends and stories that he had heard growing up. Now, while I loved hearing all the stories, my cousin was not a fan. Grandpa would always take us down there with him, and he would go hunting, or he was just there to make sure nobody was trespassing, because trespassing was a problem in the area. He was very laid back, but he only had 2 rules that we absolutely had to follow while we were there. Stay in eyesight of him and never go past the grove of apple trees. He always told us if we went over there, we would be trespassing on somebody else's property. Until one day I found out that that was 100% not the reason that he wanted me to stay away from those apple trees. This day, me and my cousin decided to take our 4-wheelers and go riding on these trails that we had made. As we're riding through the trails, I catch a glimpse of something walking in the apple trees. It was walking straight towards my great-great-grandparents' house about 150 yards away. I immediately stopped, which made my cousin slam into the back of my 4-wheeler. He started yelling at me to watch out, but I told him to shut up and look at the old house. This house had always scared me and him anyways, just because of the looks of it. It was like run down, and when you're a kid, that stuff's just creepy. We used to say that's where the boogeyman lived, and we'd always just stay away. I told my cousin it looked like our grandpa had just walked inside, because our grandpa was a rather big guy. He was like 6'5", 350 pounds. I decided to turn off the 4-wheeler, and for some reason I took off walking towards the apple trees. My cousin followed behind me because he didn't want to be left alone in the woods. As we're walking up the hill towards the apple trees, we hear a loud smack coming from inside the house. We both dropped down because we figured it was our grandpa bringing something out, and if he saw us, he'd paint our back porch red for us being out that far. As we lay there completely quiet, a large arm and hand comes out and grabs the frame of the house. We could hear the walking coming closer to the apple trees, so we just kept hiding. Once the footsteps stopped, we could hear like the rustling of tree branches and apples falling, hitting the ground. We both looked up and saw something that we at first thought was a bear. It was roughly 7.5 feet tall and covered in brown hair. Like I said, my first thought was a bear because we do have bears in that country. It was standing completely on 2 legs, just like a human, and it was using one hand to shake the tree branches and holding a bunch of apples in the other hand, at least 5 or 6 apples, but it could have held more. I was frozen in fear until all of a sudden my cousin took off running towards the 4-wheeler. When he took off, the creature dropped the tree branch and just turned and was staring right in our direction. I took off running too, and I was right on my cousin's tail as we made it to the 4-wheelers. We jumped on them and ripped out of there as quick as we could. Once we made it back to where Grandpa was, his face was beet red. It's like he knew something had happened. He told us to get in the truck now. So we did, and we took the longest ride home. He never once said a word about it back then. I'm almost 30 now, and about 8 months ago, he brought it up. I told him what I saw, and he told me that he told us to stay away from that area. He said that just because our family's name was on the title, that it didn't belong to our family. That part belonged to him. I've gone back many times since then, but I'll still never cross over and go to the apple groves again.
Appalachia is the anthology series that American Horror Story wishes it was. So I am from Appalachia, born and raised. I lived there for the first 26 years of my life, specifically Mason County, West Virginia, which is where the Mothman's origin story was created and witnessed. So I want to make this video to build off of another video that I created on a humanoid flying creature that my mom, Priscilla, and I both witnessed one late night on our way to my grandma's house. And there's a lot of parallels with a family friend's testimony to my mom and Priscilla's and my night that we witnessed what we saw. So one of my dad's best friends, Heath, is an avid hunter. Like, these are stoic men who don't make shit up, and they're just not prone to make lies. They're just very stoic and emotionless, kind of like they just want to hunt. So, and they're big burly men, so they don't get emotional or scared of anything. So the story goes, my dad was told by Heath that he woke up one morning and he went to hunt, and he gets up in his tree stand and he hears this like whoosh, 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 like it sounds like wings flapping or like kicking up wind, and he looks off into like the distance, like in a like a valley, a holler, and he sees this like humanoid flying creature flying through the air, and he got so scared he stopped hunting for a while. Okay, if you're from Appalachia and you have men in your family that like to hunt, them. Miss your funeral, they'll miss your birthday, they'll miss any major event to go hunt. Like, it's just a thing. If you're sick, do not depend on those men to take care of you during hunting season. That is their main priority. He took time off from hunting, something he's never done in his entire life. So the other parallels between this story and, Priscilla, my mom, and I's night that we witnessed that humanoid flying creature is the location. So he witnessed this flying creature, this thing that looked like a human with wings, in Evergreen. So in Mason County, there's this like road, or near where I live in Mason County, there's this road known as Evergreen. If you see, if you like look on a map where my mom, Priscilla, and I saw that humanoid flying creature, and then where Heath witnessed that event with the humanoid flying creature he saw, if you look over where on the road we saw, if you go over the mountain range, that is evergreen. Like they're parallel with each other. Almost literal parallel. So like it's bizarre that other people are seeing humanoid flying creatures. I'm not saying it's the Mothman, and this is so many years after the Mothman was spotted, but people are seeing humanoid flying creatures that are like bizarre with like hair and a tail and arms and legs and like giant things. It's bizarre, and we are not the only ones that have seen, like my mom, Priscilla, and I, we are not the only ones that have witnessed this specific flying creature in the specific area. That's even more bizarre. Like, it's crazy. It's getting crazy. It's just insane that, you know, people who know each other are seeing similar things at different points of time or different periods of time. And I do want to say, I just talked to my mom before making this video because I wanted to get clarity on the Heath story and the story that her and Priscilla and I both witnessed tonight. So we're all on board with this. And Heath, I think, saw that. She said that story was like a year after us witnessing it, or even like many months after. So like these two stories happened within a different time frame and a different season. Like I remember it being warm, and then I think their hunting season, or the hunting season he was out doing the thing, was when it's like, you know, during fall, during October and November. So like it's just weird that like humanoid flying creatures are being seen in West Virginia.
So what was this? Y'all ask me all the time, since I live in the middle of nowhere up in the mountains in Appalachia, deep in the forest, no neighbors. Do I ever see anything creepy? And I've always said, like, no. Like, I see bears and stuff. But tonight, oh, wow. So, it's dark. I go outside in the dark all the time. I know we're advised against it, but I do it all the time. So, I'm walking to the mailbox, and it's a little bit of a jaunt, and I look over, and I see what looks like a goat, a bipedal, like standing on his hind legs, a white, relatively large goat, just standing there, just for a split second. And I look, and I'm like, and I look down, and I look back, and it was gone. But it felt clear. It felt like I saw it. And I just proceeded to go get the mail. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go get the mail. The likelihood of me being attacked by a bipedal goat in the evening in the woods is unlikely. So I just went and got the mail, and it creeped me out. And so I told my husband, and I was like, hey, so this just happened. And he goes, well, maybe it was a juvenile wendigo. And you can look up a wendigo. Those things are creepy. And I do believe in this stuff. But I just always, you know, whatever.
You think your house is haunted? You might be right. Here's what to look out for. Believe it or not, there are things out there just looking for a way into your home. And I'm not talking about good things. I'm not talking about human spirits. I'm talking about things that are evil. And when they get inside of your house, there are some signs that you can watch for to know if it got through. Rule 1, pay attention to your pets, your animals. Animals can, in fact, detect the presence of supernatural creatures. They know. If you ever see them looking into a blank room, nothing, empty room, barking at something could be there. If you have small children, toddlers, and they are talking to imaginary friends, they may not be so imaginary. And unfortunately, this one could be the sure tell way to know. If you have messed with anything in the occult, Ouija boards, tarot cards, seances, something probably followed you home.
Don't forget to subscribe and share your own encounter in the comments below. The mountains are watching. Are you? As always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.